Okay, good morning everybody and welcome to our EdConnect launch event of this academic year, the big Wellbeing Welcome. Really pleased that you can join us today. My name is Ben, I'm one of the steering group members for the EdConnect network and I'm going to be your host this morning. We also have Angus, who is our tech whiz behind the scenes. You won't meet him today, but he's going to be controlling all the tech. So just a bit of housekeeping. Obviously we're streaming onto YouTube. So this will be recorded directly onto YouTube, so you can use this link to watch straight after the event if you want to watch it back. Please feel free to share it with other people, share it on social media. We are using the hashtag EdConnect for today's event, so please just use that to share your thoughts, share your ideas, share your questions, and anything else that you want to ask. We've got a real jam-packed event today with lots of people joining us who are giving up their Saturday for free, and we really appreciate you doing the same as well. So Angus, if you could go on to the next slide, that'd be great. So I'm just going to start the event by telling you a bit about EdConnect, who we are, where we're at, and also then what today's event is going to look like. So EdConnect is a global grassroots network for early career teachers and early career professionals in education, because we know that actually education isn't just all about teachers. There are lots of people doing great things in the education world and not all of them are teachers. So we are a network for early career educators. We're run completely by volunteers. So I'm a volunteer, Angus is a volunteer. Everyone that is involved in our network volunteers to help others and allow others to be the best practitioners they can be. We don't have any budget or any funding or finance or anything like that. We've done everything out of us wanting to help other people. And we do this because we believe that every early career educator should be able to thrive and not just survive. And we reflect that in everything we do, in our values, in our activities. We want everyone to have a great start to their education career and for it to be a career in the long term as well. Thank you, Angus. So with EdConnect, just to sort of put in context, the way it started was actually in the first lockdown. It started as an Instagram chat group of primary trainee teachers on a 3-year degree who'd had placements cut short or were unsure what the rest of their training would look like and when and if we'd become teachers, and I include myself in that. And it grew from that to a series of chat groups for NQTs and trainees as well. And also then we remodeled to actually become a network community for people in their early career. So we now serve as a network for people from those who aspire to teach, who aren't on training, aren't in any official teaching capacity yet, but want to potentially get into teaching, through to people who are training to teach and those in their first 5 years of teaching, including early career teachers. We held our first virtual event in January 2021, which was all about securing your first teaching post. We then held a second virtual event, which sold out 4 times, which was all about training and well-being as an early career teacher. We then did a third virtual event, which sold out 3 times, which was about preparing for teacher training for those who were just about to start their teacher training. And then we had our 4th virtual event, which was about preparing for your first year of teaching. And here we are today at today's launch event. So we soft launched last year and we're officially launching today. All of our previous events are on our YouTube channel, so feel free to watch them back. We had some fantastic speakers, lots of people who were in their early career themselves and gave up their time to share their experiences to help others. And just like today, we've got some fantastic people sharing their stories as well. So if we go on to the next slide, please. Thank you. So our network, just to put it in a bit of context, we currently have 18 members from across 18 countries, mainly in England and the UK. But we also have, and I'll show you a map on the next slide of where our other members are spaced out. We started on Instagram and sort of grew through social media, as many other grassroots networks do. So you can see there the followers on Instagram, the followers on Twitter. They're something that change every day, and often after these sorts of events, they change. This is our 5th virtual event. We've had 4 virtual events previously, and we've held 5 Instagram lives, and we're using Instagram a lot to sort of reach out to people. At the moment, I'm going to talk about what events we've got planned on the horizon, because everyone is really busy at the moment, and if you were around on Monday when lots of social media networks went down, you will see how social media is a great force for things, but also considering things like that as well. But the main thing is, from our network that I want to share with you, is people can sign up to EdConnect as a member for free, which means they get access to lots of things, including events like this, and also member-only events as well. But they also get attached to a local or regional hub close to where they live. And Angus, if you could click again, just to show how many members we've got. We've got over 1,100 members signed up across our network, which, you know, when we started an Instagram chat group and you can only have 32 people in an Instagram chat group, we never imagined we would be a network with over 1,100 people and beyond England as well. So we're really pleased that we've been able to achieve this as a network, with people working together to help others, and through doing it out of the goodness of their hearts, with no financial support at all. So next slide, please, Angus. Thank you. So just to put this in perspective, where we've got sort of our global growth, where we've got people, we've mainly got people in the UK. So I'd say about 80% of our network are UK based. We then have people across the world, the main area being the Middle East, and then we're starting to see more people in Asia, Australasia, and the Americas as well. And we're constantly thinking of ways that we can ensure that whilst each education system in each country is different, and each training system and early career system in each country is different, you know, actually our priorities as a network, things like well-being, is something that is universal, not just for early career teachers as well, but across the education profession. So we believe in working together, because together it makes us stronger across the globe. Thank you, Angus. We are a very values-led network. So when we first came together, we decided on 7 values, and actually we've decided for our events, to base each event around a specific value. So at the beginning of an EdConnect event, you get introduced to at least one of our 7 values. And today is all about collaboration. So we believe as a network that we should have sharing and caring ethos. And if you see our event where we had Sarah Mullin as our keynote speaker, she talks a lot about collaboration and not competition. We're not here to compete with anyone. We're here to help others and to collaborate and work together to ensure that we can collaborate with other organisations to enhance our members' offer, but also other organisations' offers as well. So our speakers and panellists today, many of whom are from other grassroots organisations or are freelancers and work for themselves, we believe in working with them to, one, support them, but also they're supporting us by being here to, and in turn, support people within their early career. So today is all about collaboration and not working in isolation, and knowing that everyone has someone out there to help them, and that if we work together, you know, together we are stronger. Thank you, Angus. So today's focus for our event is in 2 parts, really. We're focused, as you know, the event's called the Big Wellbeing Welcome. It's the launch of our network, the soft launch of our network. And we wanted to focus on the 2. So as a network this year, we've decided on 3 priorities, and our 3 main events, which I'm going to talk about how our events are going to work later in between the 2 panels, are going to be based around a specific theme. So the first one being well-being. We then have employability as another theme priority, and then professional relationships as another priority as well. So today we're mixing it between networking and well-being, because well-being is important for everybody, no matter whether you're in education or not. But in education, it's really important that you prioritise your well-being from the beginning. And our first panel is going to be all about well-being and how we prioritise our well-being from the beginning of our career. Our second panel is going to be all about networking. So we're going to talk about, through what networking is and how you navigate and curate your own network from the beginning of your career, and why it's important. So Angus, you can stop sharing the screen for now. And when our panelists are going to join at 11:10. So I'm just going to talk through the way the event is going to be structured today. So from 11:15 till 11:40, we're going to have a panel all about well-being, and we've got 5 panelists that I'll introduce to you very shortly. We then have, in between the 2 panels, I'm going to talk through our events for this year and what our events looks like. Now, we are a network. We are not a funded organisation or a business. So actually, we're doing everything ourselves. One thing that we're going to do is share with you what our events look like. But we're also going to be reforming and remodeling to ensure that we are meeting the needs of the people that our network serves, but also the wider education system as well. Then at 11:45 till 12, our second panel is going to all be around networking and what networking looks like in education, and how at the early part of your career you can really hit the nail with that and get that running. And then at 12:10 to 12:25, we're really fortunate to be joined by Emma Turner, who's our keynote speaker today, and she's going to present to you on lots of different things. And I think she's just a really fantastic person to have as part of our event today. And at the very end of the event, I'm going to just do some closing remarks and talk through what the next steps are. But we'll also probably get time for any Q&A with Emma as our keynote as well. Now, what I will say is any questions that you have as we go through the event, please pop them into the chat on the YouTube chat and we will pick them up. I'm going to direct questions to the panel for each panel. But we're always, obviously, if there's any specific questions that you have that you want to ask, please do put them into the chat, and we'd love to ask them. You can also DM them to us on our Twitter or on Instagram as well. Now, it is a bit earlier than 11:15, so we'll probably start our panel in the next couple of minutes, our first panel, which is all about why wellbeing is important to early career teachers and early career professionals in education. So if you've got any questions about wellbeing that you want to put in the chat, then please do, or anything that you do in your wellbeing that you think you'd like to share, feel free to add it into the chat. Angus, I'm not sure, do you want to start adding our panelists in for our first panel? Like I said, panelists, it is a bit earlier than 11:15, but I think I haven't waffled for as long as what I usually can do. We'll just start adding people in. I will introduce everyone as they come in. So just adding everyone on. And thank you to those of you introducing yourself in the chat. It's great to have you here today. We'll just add the last two panelists in. We'll just ask if panelists could mute themselves when they're not talking. That would be absolutely fantastic. And then just remember to unmute yourself when you are talking as well. That'd be absolutely fantastic. Okay, so that is everybody. So good morning, everyone, again, and thank you to our panelists for giving up a bit of their Saturday to come and talk to us. It's absolutely fantastic. So I'm just going to give a brief introduction to each person, but we will get time that if they want to add some more things that I forget, then feel free. So we're joined by Kemi, who is the founder of the Young Black Teacher Network. We are joined by Kira, who is a cover supervisor and the founder of Teacher Tea and Talk. I hope I've said that right. We are joined by Andrew, who is an experienced teacher and wellbeing guru and author. We're joined by Annalise, who is who's known as Petite Primary on Twitter and Instagram and YouTube. And we are joined by Kat, who is the founder of You Think Teachers. So good morning, everybody, and thank you so much for joining us once again. So the first question I'm going to ask everybody and sort of come from sort of a personal angle as well, so feel free to add anything. So like I say, when you're not speaking, just so that we don't get any feedback, if you could mute yourself, that'd be great. So Kemi, I'm going to come to you first, if that's okay. Why is it important to prioritise wellbeing from the very beginning of your career? Like, what have you found, and why do you personally think it's important?
What I have learned, because I didn't prioritise wellbeing at the start of my career, is that if you don't take care of yourself from the beginning, you're going to become very, very overwhelmed. And if you keep saying yes to everything that comes your way, you will experience burnout, because we naturally experience burnout in this, in teaching anyway. And we already know that there are a lot of teachers who leave the profession within the first 5 years. So if you do not prioritize your well-being from the get-go, you might even leave sooner. And the whole point is that we want teacher retention to improve. We want teachers to stay in the profession. Our kids need very good teachers in the profession who really care about them. But if we're not taking care of ourselves and prioritizing our well-being, then we can't give the best to our kids. And I found that with myself, not only because I did not prioritize my well-being, my mental health was affected, my physical health was affected. It got to a point where I got like a stage 1 disciplinary because I had too many days off work. But it's, the leadership team at the time did not understand the importance of well-being. So there was a high staff turnover that academic year. So if I did not take care of myself, I definitely wouldn't be a teacher today.
Yeah, I think that you've hit some really good points there. The first one that really stood out was, saying no and not saying yes to everything. I think as teachers, we think because, we have all these things we want to, like you say, be the best teachers for our kids, that we have to keep saying yes. But like you say, if you're not looking after yourself, you're not going to be able to look after the kids either. Thank you, Kemi. That's a great way to start the panel. I'm going to come to Kira next. Why is wellbeing important to you?
I believe that well-being is important because our role as teachers is to be role models to them. And we always say, practice what you preach. And we're always preaching to our students how your well-being is really, really important because of how you need to succeed in life. So if we aren't practicing that ourselves, how can we preach that to our students? Because we have to be those role models and leaders who can demonstrate that to them. And if they haven't got that role model showing them that we can do it, how do they expect it to do it themselves? And I think it's just important because me going through that tough mental health stage where it was like I barely could just teach, it was for me to take a step back and go, right, what do I need to do to help myself out? And that's when the ball started rolling. And for me, I then became a better teacher for it. So yeah, there you go.
Thanks, Kira. And Andrew, why is wellbeing important to you? Obviously, you've authored some books and advised a lot. So why is it important to people in their early career?
I think from the get-go, we need to think about longevity of our teachers, and Kemi's already summed that up to an extent. We mustn't forget that not only are we teaching, we've also got lives, and our lives are actually crucially important to what's going on. Otherwise, we just become totally engrossed entirely within teaching. And teaching is a calling, and it does take up a lot of our lives. But we need to have other things going on as well, and being able to prioritise that is incredibly important. But something that struck me a number of years ago, my first senior session, was that we had a lot of staff who were either over the age of 40 or under the age of 25. And what was happening was that we weren't retaining our young teachers. So we had that crucial middle ground of people who had that initial 4 or 5 years of experience, and then a lot of people who were very experienced, but nowhere in the middle. And that's your natural middle leadership that people are going to go on to the future. And that inevitably is put pressure upon the senior staff and on the lesser experienced as well. And that's got to impact upon well-being as a team. And if you've read anything of what I've said, I think team well-being is absolutely essential.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that links to something you said, Kemi, about, the importance of leadership as well in the school, being in that right school where the school prioritise well-being. So thank you, Andrew, for that. Annalise, for you, why is well-being important at the start of your career?
Well, being the fourth person to speak, it's quite hard to say something that's different because I agree with every single point that every other person has said. And I think leading on from Andrew, I kind of made some notes to myself. And the one thing that I think we can expand on from what Andrew said is having an identity outside of being a teacher. I think if you don't have a family such as myself, I don't have any children, it's very easy for those 30 children to become your entire life. You think about them, how can I help them? And suddenly, it overcomes you and it can overwhelm. Even if you're not physically doing things, it can take over your thoughts. And having a good work-life balance, self-care, taking care of your well-being can also help you have that identity outside of teaching. So, who do you socialize with, and do you have any hobbies? How do you pursue those hobbies? And I think that really helps us do that necessary disconnection from the workplace, because even if you're physically not doing anything like lesson planning or resource making, if you're still mentally in that mindset of work, and thinking of, you know, the children or what you have to do next or what you have to complete the next day, there's still not that work-life balance being achieved. And I think if you focus on well-being almost as having two selves, so like you've got your teacher self and, you know, your own personal identity, I think that can really kind of help remind you. So think, okay, right now, am I doing something for myself or am I still being teacher me? And I think, you know, if you're one of those people who work late into the night, maybe just reminding yourself of that can really help you prioritize. And I think that's something that I realized when people said, oh, okay, cool, so you're a teacher and what else do you do? And I was like, I don't actually know how to answer that. So I think that was a real turning point for me personally when talking about prioritizing my well-being and being able to, you know, to cut off from that work day. So I think that's something for us to all think about and maybe take away and be like, okay, so what is my identity outside of teaching and how can I, you know, encourage that and promote it?
Yeah, I think that's a really good point there. It is so easy to be in teacher mode because we have a really long day where you work 7 till 5, you get home and then all you want to do is just sit down, but then your laptop comes out or a pile of books come out or something like that, or you just want to go to sleep and then do it all again the next day. So I think that's a really good point there, having that identity outside. Yeah, I'm a teacher in work, but who am I outside of teacher? That's a really good point. Thank you, Annalise. And Kat, like Annalise said, you know, being the fourth person, you're now the fifth person. It's quite hard to say something new. So for the next question, we will work backwards.
No worries.
So why is it important to prioritise your well-being at the beginning of your career?
Sure. So I suppose because I used to be a secondary school teacher and now I'm an educational psychologist. So I suppose I can talk from a psychological point of view, which maybe might offer something a little bit different. But it was funny what you said, Annalise, about hobbies. I went to an interview when after I moved out of teaching before I started as a psychologist, and they asked me what I did outside of work, and I said, "What do you mean? What do you mean? What I do outside of work? I don't do anything outside of work. I just do more work." So yeah, that really reminded me of that actually. But in terms of like the psychology of what's going on in classrooms, I suppose because as a teacher, it's a completely relational profession. So you're constantly relating to other people and constantly having interactions. And we are what we'd call in psychology emotional containers for children's feelings. So we take on all of their feelings and they project all of their feelings onto us, their feelings of anxiety or guilt or shame or worry, things that are going on at home, they push them all onto us. And that's what we do. We keep hold of them because we care about them. And as well as teaching them, we're really helping them to manage their emotions and regulate their emotions. But that's really overwhelming for us as teachers because you're carrying everybody's feelings. And if you leave at the end of a school day feeling really heavy, it's because you've taken on everybody's feelings. You've absorbed all of their feelings like a sponge. So eventually that sponge is going to become saturated and you need to wring it out, because otherwise that's when we get to burnout, because we've taken on too many feelings. And if we don't do that, we can't help children to regulate themselves and manage their own feelings. So we can't manage behavior, because you know the best way to manage behavior is to be calm and to be patient and to take your time and to be, you know, and to be able to be regulated yourself. And if you're not emotionally well, then you can't do that. And that's why teachers shout and raise their voices and lose their tempers. And that doesn't work. We all know that. We all probably learned that in the first few months of teaching, that if you shout or you get into an argument or disagreement, you're not going to win and you're not going to get anywhere. But you can't do that if you haven't had that time to empty those feelings out. And the only way we can do that is to talk about them and empty them out onto somebody else, so that we need an emotional container, just like the children use us as emotional containers. And there's a really nice quote actually, that as adults and teachers, we can really, really help children to regulate themselves and regulate their emotions. But a dysregulated adult can't help anybody to regulate. So if we're not emotionally well, we can't help children to regulate their feelings and manage their feelings. So essentially, in order to be good practitioners and to protect the emotional well-being of our students, we have to be regulated ourselves, and we have to have somewhere to put all of those challenging, difficult feelings that we come home with at the end of the day.
Yeah, I think that's a really, really good point, because we often talk about, I know in my school, we talk about every child in the school having that trusted adult that they can go to, which might not necessarily be their teacher. But we also talk about as a staff that we need trusted adults as well, not just in school, but at home as well, like, that we can just, you know, when you've had a really bad day, that you can just say, do you know, I've had a really bad day, I just need to talk to someone about it and offload it. And especially if you're, as most teachers are, if you're the only adult in that room, and you are just seeing children all day and you don't see any other adults, and I'm sure we've all seen that last year as well because of COVID, where you are the only adult in the room and you can't mix, it is really easy to just keep it in and take it home and then come back the next day and like things happen again. So I think that's a really good point there about us being regulated to then regulate the children. So thank you, Kat. Now, today's event, as well as obviously this panel is focusing on wellbeing, but the reason why we've got all the panelists on this panel, but also on our next panel as well, is to do with the networks or organisations or initiatives that they've founded themselves and they're part of. So what I want to ask you now is sort of, how are you, either as a person, if you're a freelancer, or the organisation you're affiliated with today, what sort of things does your organisation do to support the well-being of the people you interact with? I mean, some of the people we've got today, your primary role is well-being. Some of our other panelists, their primary role is networking. But if we think well-being affects everybody and it comes into everybody's lives, so for example, us as a network, we deal with early career professionals and their well-being because they are new entrants to the profession. You might be a network that focuses on diversity, but that well-being impacts on that as well. So what I'm going to ask you now is, how do you or your organisation champion and support the well-being for the people you serve? What sort of things do you do? So Kat, I'm going to start with you so that you're not the last person. So sorry, Kemi, you're going to be the last person on this one. But I'm sure this one will be a very different question because I'm sure you're all doing lots of different things. So Kat, over to you.
So like I said, I'm an educational psychologist by profession. So I'm employed by a local authority sort of as my day-to-day job. But this year I set up the You Think Teachers Network, which is all about supporting and enhancing emotional wellbeing for teachers. And it was born out of the fact that lots of health professionals, when I moved into psychology, get what clinical professionals call supervision, which sounds like a kind of line management thing, but it's the complete opposite. It's actually just protected time and space to talk about the things that you're finding challenging and unpick them in a really non-judgmental way and without any form of line management or performance management. So you're literally just having a chance to think through and understand why things might be going on in the classroom and what you can do differently. And then when we do that, we can think more clearly about next steps and new strategies, because we get stuck sometimes. And it just struck me that, you know, teachers are one of the few professions who don't have that form of supervision, which is so strange. And, you know, because you're having so many interactions. So I just really believe that teachers should have that, and educational psychologists can give that and can provide that for schools, but schools aren't often able to afford to buy that in and buy that support in for teachers. So the purpose of You Think is to provide that. We call them work discussion groups, and they run online at the moment, and people can join them for free, and they're facilitated by me. And they're just opportunities to bring things that you're finding difficult and to unpick them a bit with other people, all have a think about why that might be happening and what we can do next, and think of some new ways forwards. So we run the work discussion groups, and we're starting them again this year. And then we also run psychoeducation sessions. So understanding the psychology of the classroom. So I might pick different psychological theories to explain different things that might be happening in your classroom. So, you know, if somebody's kicked off and started a fight in your classroom, well, why might that have happened? And what was the psychology of that? And what led to that? So we use different theories to try and understand the classroom better, because I found that when I left teaching, I learned loads about the psychology of the classroom that I'd never been taught in initial teacher training. And it's so important because you're constantly in these psychological processes that you're not taught about. So it's really just about skilling teachers up so that they know why things are happening in their classroom and what the psychology might be, and giving them a chance to think about how they can use that to think of some new ways forwards and new strategies. So it's all free. It's all facilitated by me, and it's all online, so it's available for everybody. So if you follow us on Twitter, then you can come and join, and really, really simple to sign up.
That's great. Thank you, Kat. So Annalise, over to you. So you're the founder of Unlock Teach Talk. So tell us a bit about that and what you did and why you set it up.
So Unlock Teach Talk is quite simply just a hashtag, but I noticed that you know, when you come home and you're kind of, you might feel overwhelmed, or like Kat said, you know, you've just soaked up all the emotions of all the children that day and you're just completely exhausted. And then you think, okay, I'm going to relax. I'm just going to open up my phone. And then you scroll on Instagram and you see these incredible pictures from teachers that suddenly make you feel very inadequate about yourself or your ability. And sometimes it's nice just to feel like you can relate to somebody. And Ben, when you mentioned, you know, having that trusted adult to talk to, if you don't have that, or especially in times with COVID when that wasn't an option, it's nice if you can open up Instagram and you know that there's somebody that you can talk to, or you know that there is a place that you can go where there is going to be content that you can relate to. And I think sometimes just knowing that you're not the only person feeling that way or the only person in that situation, it can be enough to almost relieve some of the negative feelings, because you're like, okay, this is just a bad day. Everyone has bad days. Tomorrow will be a new day, rather than just feeling, oh, everyone's doing better than me. Look at the amazing progress and displays and things that they've created when I'm just here, you know, coming back and collapsing onto the couch after a long day. And that's one of the reasons behind the hashtag, is that we can talk about our bad days, or, you know, whether it's a good experience or a bad experience, we can just talk about it. And I think it's an open way to reflect and to kind of grow, and also to be able to relate to other people, because there have been a few people that have created posts and they've, you know, tagged the hashtag, and there have been so many comments of people saying, thank you for sharing this, I needed to read this, I felt like this yesterday, I hope your day gets better. And it's so nice to be able to kind of share that, not necessarily experience, but kind of get it off your shoulders, and for other people to know as well, I'm feeling the same way as you are, and for that to be normal. It's become a normal expression to say it's okay not to feel okay. And I think it's an easy way, you know, it's just one hashtag that can almost unite people together. And if you're on that hashtag and you see somebody posting it, then you can offer some either words of wisdom, or just say, I'm here to talk to you if you want to. And for somebody that's having a bad day, sometimes that can be enough just to know that you're not alone. So it's really about being honest and relatable, and, you know, being able to reflect on your experiences and try to grow from it and let it go and start the next day afresh.
Thank you, that's great. Andrew, what are you sort of doing in the wellbeing sphere at the moment?
Well, when I taught and when I was in team leadership, I saw a lot of people talking about self-care, and that's incredibly important that people can do that. But what did strike me as a team leader in school was that you need to actually enable people to do that. And if the pressures within a school are not enabling you to have your time for your self-care, then the culture of well-being isn't right. I've always believed that anyone could potentially be a well-being leader. In fact, everyone should be in a school. And it's important it's driven by someone in senior leadership, not necessarily led by them, but certainly driven by them. So it's in the culture, and there's a definite commitment to the well-being of staff and of children from the very top. If you are principled and you're values led, you're actually thinking about a well-being culture from the outset, which is far better than trying to address something after something has happened. So if you've got a situation where staff are very stressed and you haven't had a strategy, you haven't thought long term about, are we avoiding things like this, then you're going to create problems. If you're anticipating ahead of time what your situation could be, what your workload strategy is, what your marking policy is, then you're addressing things beforehand. And I think it's also important that we have a culture where people can talk and not be judged if they're finding things difficult. Because everyone is different, everyone contributes a different amount to a team. But if you are struggling, if you've got someone of experience you can turn to, they can help you with strategies or how to cope with that. And instead of being judged, and it's the schools where people judge which are in danger of being termed toxic, and that's where wellbeing is least valued and probably where it's being dealt with as an add-on. A great example are the schools where head teacher comes in and put cakes on the staff room table, which is great, it's team building, but what if somebody doesn't get to come get their cake? What if somebody's so busy in their room they don't come to it? What if they've all gone? So the cake as an example needs to be actually thought out a bit more, because that's an opportunity for everyone to come together, to be together, to share, chat. They might chat about things that have nothing to do with school, but those things like that are all small elements that build to a bigger picture of well-being.
Thanks, Andrew. And Kira, tell us a little bit about Teacher Tea Talk. I hope I've said that right.
Yeah, you have. So originally, I branded it as Trainee Tea and Talk because at the time I created the initiative as a trainee teacher, and the aim of it was to just have a chat for 40 minutes on Zoom about anything you wanted. It could be how great your month has been, how bad your month has been. It could literally be absolutely anything you wanted to openly talk to teachers about. But now it's been rebranded to Teacher Tea and Talk because it's now more open to literally anybody within the education system. Even though it was branded Trainee Tea, we had teachers coming on anyway, which was amazing. But the whole idea around it is just to openly talk about whatever you want to talk about in a non-judgment zone where you can gain advice from people who may have already gone through that and overcome that, or just chatting about how amazing your month has gone and we can all celebrate your achievements. So it's just a free space to chat once a month. It's always on the last Sunday of the month. My dates that I have scheduled are on my Instagram and my Twitter if people want to check it out. But it's just a lovely space. We've had people make friends on there. There's loads of people on the Instagram community, particularly who are part of a team with me who come on every month, which is so nice to give up their time. And it's just a great little space to make friends as well and network and connect as well. So if anyone is interested, please follow me and you can find out all the dates on there. And if anyone has any questions, you can chat to me on Instagram or Twitter or leave questions in the chat box.
Thanks, Kieran. We'll gladly, if you want to send those dates over, we can send them out to people who are attending today as well. So thank you. And Kemi, thank you for waiting over so patiently. So with regards to wellbeing and the Young Black Teacher Network, why is it important within your network and your community?
Wellbeing is important in the education sector anyway, but I feel like as a Black teacher, there are some other things that work against us. So it's important. The whole point of the Young Black Teachers Network is to have a safe space for people who look like me, who are, whether you're new to the profession, whether you've been in the profession for a while, or when I say young, I mean like until I'm 60, I'm still going to be young anyway, so I don't care. But the whole point is just for people who are in education, who are Black, whether they're African or Caribbean descent, just to have a safe space where we can support and help each other, because we understand that well-being goes beyond the classroom as well. And there are certain things that we may face that other people may not be able to understand when we try to explain it. So, or you don't always want to explain certain things. You just want somebody who gets it, who understands straight away. So Young Black Teachers Network exists to ensure that we serve our community, we support our community, because we know teacher retention is quite poor, and we want to ensure that although there are quite a few teachers who end up leaving within 5 years, it will make it less, that means there'll be less Black teachers in the education sector, and that will be even worse for the kids in inner city London schools, for example, because we believe representation matters. We believe that if you have a role model, if you have a real model, somebody who's like just like you, then you're more likely to maybe engage in certain subjects or to enjoy school a bit more, because we understand that for our students, school might be their safe haven, their sanctuary, where they can kind of get away from the things going on outside school or at home. So we want the well-being of our kids to be a priority, and we make sure that the well-being of our teachers are a priority by ensuring that there's a safe space for Black teachers to connect, to share their experiences. And we have events online. We've had events in person, well, face-to-face events as well. But due to COVID, everything's moved to online now. So yeah, that's what we do. That's why we exist, to support our teachers.
Thank you so much, Kemi. And you've touched on lots of things there about the well-being of our kids, but we're not going to get that right if the well-being of our teachers isn't right. And that's what lots of us have said as well. And yeah, having those people, that safe space where you can just be really honest, and it's okay not to be okay. And actually by talking about it, that really helps as well. Thank you so much. I mean, we've only gone through 2 questions and we started 5 minutes early as well, but I think we've covered so much in that time. So thank you so much. For our panelists that are currently on the screen, if there's any, I know you've talked about your own organisations and networks, if there's anything you want sending out to our guests today, like Kira with the dates and stuff, please send them over. And we really appreciate you giving up part of your Saturday to be part of this panel. And I'm sure we'll be working together as a network very soon as well. So thank you very much, and have a great rest of your Saturday.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks very
Bye.
much. Bye.
Okay, so that was a fantastic panel talking all about wellbeing then, and our second panel will be starting in the next 5 minutes, all about networking, with a focus on networking. So I'm just going to spend a couple of minutes talking about our EdConnect events for the year. So as we all know, in education, we're all busy all of the time. We've just talked about wellbeing and work-life balance, or life-work balance, or life balance, whatever you prefer to call it. So our events this year, this is our first event of this academic year, and we're doing 2 other main events as well this year, one in January and one around just after Easter. But we're doing lots of other smaller events as well. Like I said, one of the main things that you get when you join as part of our network is you can link to your local or regional hub. So at the moment, we've got our Northwest hub and our South East England hubs, who are just currently planning events that they'll be hosting virtually initially, and we do hope to host some online in-person events very soon. We're also going to be doing a number of Instagram lives, because we found that Instagram lives are a really good way of engaging with people. It's where we started our network from, was by using and utilising Instagram and social media. So we're really keen to engage with that as well. But one thing that we want to do, that we're going to talk about at the end of today's event, is that we want to hear what you want as people in your early career, but not just teachers in your early career, mentors, trainers, leaders of early career programs. We want you all to be able to engage with our network, so it's purposeful, meaningful, and that we get the very best out of our network. A lot of our events last year were decided by our steering group, and they were actually really good events. We had high levels of engagement. We were able to network with other networks and organisations just like today. But we really want to maximise that to the best of our ability, really. In the next few minutes, we're going to bring in the panellists for our second panel of today. And I'm sure, just like the first one, there'll be lots of wisdom shared, and also lots of amazing things that people talk about. So we've talked about wellbeing, and now we're going to talk about, in a moment, the importance of networking and what networking is, why it's important. And like we said, we've talked about the importance of establishing well-being from the beginning of your career, but also establishing networking from the beginning of your career, and how networking can support your well-being as well, and how well-being can support your networking. So we've got 5 fantastic people from 5 fantastic organisations and networks as well, who are, I can see them in the studio. We're going to add them in a couple of moments, a bit earlier, just like we did with our first panel. And we're going to be talking about the importance of networking and how you actually go about curating and creating and navigating that network as a brand new teacher. It can be quite daunting, just like anything that's new, and how you do that and how you do it in a really meaningful way. Angus, if you're okay to start adding people in, that would be fantastic. Good morning, everybody. Hello, it's great to see you all. Just got 2 more people we're adding in. Fantastic. And then we're just, I think Joe's just having, oh, and he's just about, oh, now his device is working. Fantastic. So good morning to all of our second panelists now. So again, I'm just going to give a brief introduction to each people, but in the space of time, I won't be able to explain how each person is absolutely amazing. So I'm just going to give a really brief overview. So we've got Yolanda, who is the co-founder of Mindful Equity UK. We've got Ria, who is the founder of Black Teachers Connect. We've got Jo, who is the head of membership at the Chartered College of Teaching. We have Vivian, who's one of the co-founders and current global strategic leads for Women Ed. And then we have Hannah, who is the co-founder of Diverse Educators and director of Diverse Educators, and also a co-founder of Women Ed as well. So 5 fantastic people who really have the work of their networks has inspired the way our network has sort of been created and navigated. So thank you for inspiring our network as well. But we're going to talk about how you network today as a new professional in education, because like I said, it is quite daunting. So similar to the first panel, I'm going to ask this question to everyone. Why is it important to prioritize networking from the beginning of your career, and even before you even start that teacher training journey? Why is it important to begin it from that point? I'm going to come to Ria first, because I think the reason why you set up Black Teachers Connect was really interesting when I read it as to why you did that. So do you want to share a little bit about that, please? Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Ben. I think when I started Black Teachers Connect, it was really important at the beginning of my career. When I walked into that initial lecture at UCL, I didn't see anyone really that looked like me. And it felt really daunting to be one of the few Black women teacher training. And so I really thought that it was important that nobody else went through that when they went into teacher training, because that could be a reason why you walk back out the door and you don't return, especially when you don't see anybody that looks like you. So when I started Black Teachers Connect and I looked into the statistics and I realized that 2% of teachers were Black, I was like, wow, something needs to be done here, and I need to create a space where Black teachers can come together and they can network with one another, not only in terms of professional development, but also personal development. So keeping them in the profession, supporting them both physically, mentally, ensuring that they are doing well, and making sure that they have a place to vent. And I think sometimes we really don't value what we mean by representation matters, but we've helped to keep a lot of teachers in this profession when they've wanted to walk away, especially in those early days. So with things such as mentors, for example, not a lot of the Black trainee teachers I know have had a Black mentor. That's something we've really tried to change with our mentorship scheme, which launched last month. So every trainee teacher that's on that mentorship scheme has an individual who is later into their career, senior leader, head teacher, but they are more experienced and they can support them, even if their mentor in school is not a Black person, for example. But it's been really pivotal in keeping people in the profession.
That's fantastic. Thanks, Ria. And I think that really links well to our first panel, all about well-being, that, you know, the retention that has been caused through that networking is really important. So thank you for that. I'm going to come to Vivian next, if that's okay. Why is networking, Vivian, so important at the beginning of your career? Oh, Vivian, you're on mute, sorry.
Somebody had to be, didn't they? It's because we want women to be able to stay in the profession and stay in their career, exactly as Ria was saying. There are different reasons why women, especially those who aspire and are in leadership positions, there's different reasons why they might leave the profession in that way. But Women Ed focus particularly on leaders. And so Ria's point is just as significant for us, because an awful lot of women don't see themselves in leadership positions, which is really shocking, given that 3/4 of the workforce in education are women. And also we think it's really important because very many women often think that they're the only ones who are thinking some of the thoughts that they have. And as Women Ed has grown so exponentially and is now global, they realize that pretty much every woman in education thinks as they do. And it's just interesting to see so many women on this screen as well, because that's great also. And thanks very much for that, Ben, because often that doesn't happen even in events such as this. So we think women should curate a network at the beginning of their career an ongoing career-long network so that they can understand some of the education issues for women, so that they can get support, mentorship, coaching around becoming a leader or taking the next step on their leadership journey. And because we're great fun, it helps women see that there is a fantastic community who's got their back and who makes being in the career more joyous than it absolutely can be.
That's fantastic, Vivian. Thank you. And yeah, we've seen some really key points there about not just networking as a leader. It's probably quite natural that you do that in a leadership capacity, but starting from the beginning of your career. So I'm going to come to Hannah next, because I remember seeing something once on Twitter that you said you believe that actually as part of teacher training, we should be trained on navigating that networks. Do you want to talk a bit about, why is networking important from the beginning of your career?
Sure, Ben. I think the irony of our profession is that you're joining a community, but you're actually quite isolated when you're in your classroom all day. And that's what I hear a lot from teachers, that you almost feel more lonely because you're in a building with adults who you don't have time to actually talk to. And I think through my conversations with each of the organisations and networks kind of like in this space and different people in my network, that you then have sort of like double barriers of like geographical isolation, or you're on maternity leave, or you're the only person of colour in your school. And there's things that then make you feel even more excluded. So if we think about belonging and what belonging actually means, it's about connection and community and relationships. And I think I joined Twitter 10 years ago, and I was looking for connectivity, and I was looking for people who thought like me. And I was looking for people who were navigating a similar journey for me. And the opportunities that have come to me through that networking have been significant. And I'd wish I'd had women ed when I was at the start of my career, because I was a deputy head at that point. And I think with all the different spaces that have now emerged, it's about not just thinking about your position, it's thinking about who you are as in your identity, but also what you care about. So finding other groups of like-minded people, for example, like men who teach primary, that's a very specific group, and that's a brilliant network that the guys there have kind of grown. And I think it makes you realise, as Vivian said, that you're not the only one thinking and feeling like this. And I think that holding the mirror up and finding other people who get it. And there's lots of research about the fact that women don't lean into networking as much as men in all industries, that women find it harder around their domestic and familial responsibilities. And networking is part of that career trajectory, and it opens doors, and it means that you've got those connections to call on. So if we practice those skills at the get-go, at the kind of the start of our career, it's part of who we are as an educator, and we see the value not only that we get personally, but also the value we can bring back to our schools through the networking as well.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point, that what it brings back to the school as well, because I mean, I'm only beginning my career, and I found that actually through being able to navigate that network and having that support, that when I've needed a question, if I've not got someone in my school, there is someone else I can turn to. So I think that's really important as well. So thank you, Hannah. That's great. So Joe, I'm going to come to you next. How does the Chartered College of Teaching support that networking?
Yeah, so apologies if you can hear a washing machine in the background. I hope you can cut through. It's a usual weekend in my house here. So I think what the Chartered College, obviously as a professional body, is trying to do is really work with those kind of grassroots organizations that exist. And I don't think we would ever want to replace or kind of lead them, because it's so important that they are kind of those on the ground. So I think promoting, elevating, emphasizing. So we try and promote all of them as much as possible. Like I've worked with lots of people on this chat, for example, like even council members, like, people have stood and actually governed the Chartered College and still do. So I think just really trying to be that kind of central conduit within the profession of, I always describe the Chartered College as a bit of a one-stop shop of where to go to for networking, research and insights. Is a fair summary.
Thanks, Joe. That's great. Brilliant. And Yolanda, for you, why is networking so important at the beginning of your career?
Goodness, after everything everyone else has said, I think that's such a big question to state. And I think following on from Joe, considering I have pretty much worked with everyone on this screen already in some capacity, or communicated or amplified, I think that I would probably have to start at the very beginning of when networking happened for me. And it all happened when I was in a classroom at Harris, Harris City, the Crystal Palace School. And I see this bold as brass Hannah Wilson telling me that all women can do everything they want to do. And I was like, I was about to leave the profession, because I think the context for Black and Asian people of color generally, teacher trainees, as Ria has said at the very beginning, you often end up being the only one in your space. Geographically, depending on where you are, that can be a very scary experience. And as Vivian said, if you bring the intersecting of being a woman, let alone all the familial constraints and challenges that you might have, that often means that your early career is quite scrappy. And I think you finish your training and your induction years feeling lethargic and tired. And when you finally get that role as whether it be your first middle leadership, your first phase responsibility in primary of, Key Stage 3 or numeracy or whatever it might be, you feel like I've made it. But then as you go up in education and leadership, whether it be in education in any other field, it's an isolating place to be. And although in education we are using ourselves, we're using our emotion, our care, it can be very emotionally draining, leaning on networks, leaning on the experience, the wisdom, the pain, the joy of other practitioners can be empowering, strengthening, and nurturing for the soul. So I find that actually knowing that everyone else has experienced much like what I have means that you can pretty much get over anything that comes your way. So networking from the very beginning can really strengthen you for what's ahead.
That's great. Thank you so much, Yolanda. So the next question I'm going to ask to you all, and we'll go through, is obviously today's event is all about those in the early part of their career within education, whether they're just starting out and then they're in those first couple of years. So with regards to the networks or organisations that you lead and represent, how can those in the early career space, how can they engage with your network? So I think we'll come, as Yolanda, you went last first, we'll come to you. We'll come to you first for this one. So how can people, the people new to education engage with Mindful Equity UK?
So we go on a seeking mission, but we also allow ourselves to be open to receive any contacts that people would like to make with us. So I'll speak about it from a two-pronged approach. Our website would be the first place to land, but I suppose if you're just coming into education, the challenge is, well, where do I go? Where do I find all of these people? And I have to shout out Hannah and Diverse Ed's website for being an amazing platform for amplifying the voices of all of these different networks. And it might be that you're from the LGBTQ community and deciding, do I want to share that with my students? Do I want to keep that for myself? Is that something that's part of my authentic self and in my teaching that I want to bring forward? How can I do that in a safe way for myself and my students? There are plenty of incredible networks and practitioners that you can find in their directory, and we feature there too. But also what we do is we partner with training providers to offer workshops, insights, and essentially sessions like this to make ourselves known to those thinking about coming into the profession. So my advice would be, in the first instance, find yourself to Diverse Ed so you can find that beautiful directory, which is hugely impactful and can point you out to any parts of communities or parts of yourself that you'd like to see, people that you'd like to connect with. But also, I think Eventbrite was really powerful for me in just, I popped in the word teacher or teaching, and all of these networks and events that are more often than not free are a great way for you to start. And then you can start to think about how you'd like to invest in your career and in your growth, and whether you want to go down the coaching route, etc. So that would be my answer.
That's great, Yolanda. Thank you so much. And I think I'll come to Hannah next, because Yolanda's really talked about the Diverse Ed website and the directory. So how can those in their early career engage with Diverse Ed, Hannah?
Thank you, Ben, and thanks for the shout out, Yolanda. We see ourselves as signposting out to the system, but when we built the website a year ago, we put ourselves in the position of, if you were, I don't know, an older head teacher in Devon of a faith school, not on Twitter, how would you know even how to start connecting with other networks? How would you find them? And you can spend ages like searching on different platforms. So we wanted to create one space to signpost out to the system. And we have grown so much in a year. We've gone from having 50 organisations to 165 organisations in our DEI directory, and it's constantly being updated. And the directory works two ways. You can go to it A to Z, or you can go to it by protected characteristic. So say, for example, you were a woman of colour, just starting as an early career teacher, you wanted to find an affinity group or a network. Two of the organisations who are represented today are in that section of our website, along with some others. So it helps you to perhaps save the time and the energy. I think one of the things to really think about is how you convert your virtual connections into real-time connections, because people can feel connected via who they're talking to on Twitter, but the deeper relationships when you actually then go to the face-to-face. So similar to you, Andy, finding out what events are happening and being brave and going, perhaps tweeting out that you're going and meeting someone for a coffee before the event starts, so you don't feel isolated walking into that big space of people who you think know each other, but they probably don't. So I think that, for me, like, that was the beauty of Women Ed. We had so many grassroots events on Saturdays for years that you were building relationships with people who I still now ring now regularly. So I think it's that you have to see it as an investment in yourself, that you do the virtual networking, but you convert it into real-time networking. And as you said, Ben, when you then need someone in 6 months' time or a year's time, you kind of know who to go to because you've built that circle of support around you.
Yeah, I think that's really good. And I think that's really pertinent for people in their early career, you know, to go to an education event, a grassroots education event on a Saturday, and you see all these people there that you see from Twitter, also, and especially those with larger followings, you might think, oh, I don't know if I can go, but, you know, tweeting out for people as well. And I'm also going to shout out the Diverse Educators website, because one of my last assignments I did before teacher training was on diversity and equity, and I don't think I would have passed that assignment if it wasn't for your website, Hannah, so thank you so much. So Vivian, I'm going to come to you next. What can, and I'm sure after last weekend's global conference, which looked absolutely amazing, which is one way I'm sure early career teachers could engage with Women Ed. How else can those in their early career engage with Women Ed?
Well, yes, lots of early career teachers were engaged in the global conference, and that's because we have a lot of trainee teachers and all the way up to 5 years into your career, as you're saying, as part of the Women Ed network. And that's grown because we have actually put on quite specific events for early career teachers. Started quite small in London, then got bigger and bigger in London, and then we did a really big online one during the pandemic. We also include in that, of course, our He for She network, which you're a part of, Ben, in that way, because Women Ed is inclusive, both for all women, all protected characteristics who are women, and men who want to support gender equity. So I really just want to make it clear that for all early career teachers, Women Ed is there to support you to be the best kind of teacher and supporter of gender equity that you can be, either man or woman or a leader or an educator. And we're not only for teachers. So if there are people in their early career in education who work in support roles in schools, then we're for you as well. If you're a woman in a school, or actually if you're an early career teacher in further education and higher education, then Women Ed is for you. And you can find us all over the place. We have a website also, womened.org, and we have our partnerships page there, of which EdConnect is one of those partners, as well as Transition to Teaching, because that's a network of absolute early career teachers who've moved over from other careers, and they find it quite strange going into education. So we're there for them. You can find us on Eventbrite if you put #WomenEd in. And we've got several events there that would be relevant. We've got one coming up shortly around behaviour and an audience with Adele Bates. So we think that's really helpful for early career teachers. I'm doing one on negotiation because we find a lot of issues that early career teachers may need to negotiate about. And we want to give them some skills to do that rather than feeling they can't have a voice. And we've also got an international career clinic coming up. And I know you've got international members, Ben. But we're on Twitter at WomenEd, we're on Facebook, we're on Instagram, we've got newsletters, and our website's got all of those. So I think that's the best place to start. And I just wanted to add one point in to connect with what Joe was saying, because I stood for election as vice president for the Chartered College, because I believe passionately that women need to be being active in all of these organisations. And elections are coming up, aren't they, Joe? So I really just want us to shout out that one of the ways early career teachers can get involved, certainly with the college and with WomenEd, is to stand for election for some of those, representing early career teachers, because then we're all engaged with supporting those for lifelong career networks in that way. And that's where we can all pay back to the future generation.
Yeah, I think that's a really good lasting point you said there about it being a lifelong career and the networks you get from that. So thank you, Vivian. Ria, I'm going to come to you next. Obviously, you shared at the beginning of the panel that the reason why you set up Black Teachers Connect was for that representation which you felt you didn't have. So how can early career teachers engage with your network?
So we do a lot of events that are tailored specifically towards teachers who are in their early careers. So we've had our teacher trainee webinar, which is available on YouTube to watch back, and that talks through the whole experience of teacher training and also your NQT year as well. We've had mini workshops, and those are signposted on Eventbrite. So we had one on lesson planning, for example, behavior management. So all of that has been really important for early career teachers. We also try to tailor our workshops towards what the demand is for. So I once was getting a lot of questions about negotiation in terms of money and salary. And I did a short Instagram live, and we had a Making Money Moves in Education event, which was really popular. And a lot of trainee teachers managed to come to that. And we gave them advice about, for example, many have the assumption that you have to start on M1. For example, in your when you go into your NQT year, you actually don't, because a lot of people come into teaching with prior experience. And so early career teachers can definitely just benefit from following us on social media, signing up to our newsletter, making sure notifications are on Eventbrite, and just get really involved. And a lot of our community are based on things such as Twitter and Instagram. And what we found is when you're really engaged on these platforms in the comments or just tweeting back, you end up developing relationships with people. And we found that out a lot with our network. And so someone will be like, oh, you know, I met this person through your network. And I'll be like, wow, that's really amazing. So just being engaged, you know, it's not just going to come straight away. But I think if you're engaged and you really get involved in the network, it's fine for early career teachers. And again, people might email us, and I don't mind doing support calls with individuals. So I tend to do one once a week, depending on what the demand is. And I'll have a few training teachers in there or people that are in their NQT year. So we really do try to support. And our mentorship scheme launches every September. So we've got our cohort already for the year, 12-month program, and each month there's a specific objective, but you have to apply for it between July and August to be able to get signed up for September.
Thank you, Ria. That's great. And that really links well to the point that Hannah made earlier about, you know, those digital sort of relationships and friendships becoming real life connections as well. So thank you. So finally, Joe, what's the Chartered College? I know the Chartered College is in lots and lots of things, but for early career teachers, how can the Chartered College help? Why should early career teachers sign up as a member of the Chartered College?
Yeah, I guess the first thing is student teachers get membership absolutely free, so I don't know why you wouldn't. And then they get a half price as early career teachers. We were actually involved with the early career framework, and our director, Kat Scott, was actually really heavily involved in writing what the framework looked like. So, and we've run the pilot program for what the new early career framework program should look like, and then handed it over to the current providers. So we're really, really kind of well versed in all things early career teachers, and especially looking at the latest research of what the most effective professional development is available for them, and actually is the most effective at their career stage. So we've got an amazing early career hub. It is really brilliant, and I'm not just saying that because I'm very biased and get paid to say that. Like as an ex-teacher, I would say please do go onto it. It's just a really brilliant hub full of, it's actually got over 40 videos on there of teachers teaching, and we explain what key concepts are in teaching. There's hundreds of articles on there as well. And also, I think it's just an opportunity for actually anybody in their first 5 years of teaching to be published themselves. So we've got a call for papers out at the minute for peer review journal called Impact, and we want the voices of early career teachers on there. And kind of going back to Vivian's point as well, if you want to stand for our council elections, they are open at the minute. You need to be a member to put yourself forward, but we want the voices of early career teachers, because I always say this when I go to different ITT providers, but you quite literally are the future of the teaching profession. You're the future Ofsted inspectors, head teachers, CEOs, phase leaders, teachers. I just really don't underestimate I think the impact that you'll have over the course of your career, and just getting involved with things like this and other networks, but also the Charter College elections, for example. It's just another kind of what's the expression, feather to your bow or something like. Yeah, anyway, just go with it. I think kind of capitalize on all the opportunities that you feel that you're able to at your career stage.
That's brilliant. Thank you so much. And just like our first panel, we've got through 2 questions, but I think we've shared so much wisdom across and so many golden threads that it's come to the end of our panel discussion now. But thank you so much for all of you for giving up some of your Saturday to be with us today. We are posting links in the chat for people, so if there's anything else you want us to send out as a follow-up newsletter, feel free to send it across and we'll make sure those links are shared. So thank you once again for giving up some of your Saturday, and have a great rest of the weekend. Okay, so what a whirlwind morning this has been, and I'm so excited now that we're going to introduce our keynote speaker, Emma Turner, who I often tweet on our EdConnect account as the Queen of Early Career, even though she denies that she's the Queen of Early Career. But she's an absolutely fantastic person, guru on early career. So we were like, we've got to get her for this event. And she's going to share some of her wisdom with you. So Angus, if you want to bring Emma in just before we start sharing the screen so we can say hello to her.
Hello.
Good morning, Emma. Well, good afternoon, sorry, Emma.
Hi, how you doing?
I'm good, how are you?
Yeah, just feeling the weight of that queen crown. I am so not the queen, Ben, but thank you anyway. Nice sentiment.
So, Emma, you obviously really engage. Obviously, I think one of the misconceptions we want to part first, that you don't just obviously deal with early career teachers, but it's something that you do a lot of. This week, for example, I've seen you present at one of the early career small group sessions, conferences, and those sort of things, and you're really heavily involved in that. So, Angus, do you want to start sharing Emma's screen? And I'm going. Yeah, this is the part where I usually get scared, but I'm going to disappear to not distract you.
Okay.
Do that. But Angus will, if you want to be your inner Chris Whitty and say next slide, please. Angus will.
I did think about that, and I'm really ruining the fact that I put some like little reveals on there, so I'm gonna have to go next. This is all gonna go horribly wrong. Anyway, thank you for having me. As you said, Ben, I do a lot of work with early career teachers. I've worked in lots of schools across the country. I'm predominantly working in primary, although I am kind of secondary trained. But I've worked with early career teachers now for about 20 years in various roles, through headship, through deputy work, through my trust work now. So I'm really lucky to work with lots of early career teachers, and I just wanted to share a little bit of thinking from some of the sessions that I normally run with my early career colleagues throughout their first couple of years. So these pictures I'm going to come back to in a little while. So there's somebody falling off a cliff, some binoculars, Mario Kart, Mo Farah, and a big pick and mix of sweets. So we're going to pick up on those in a little while. But if I can just have the next one, Angus, I just wanted to show you this picture from Ollie Cav. So obviously it's the picture of memory and of how we learn. Now, you will probably, if you're an early career teacher, recognize this. You've probably seen it on ITT. It's definitely in the new early career framework materials. So why am I showing it today when this is not necessarily about memory and learning and retention and all that jazz? Well, I wanted to show it because actually this is the process that, even though we are the teacher, we are still going through all the time. We have huge pulls on our cognitive reserves constantly as we navigate that kind of really data-rich environment that is the classroom. You know, as we're getting to grips with behaviour management, with explaining, scaffolding, modelling, adaptive teaching, all of these things are huge pulls on our own kind of cognitive resources. And I just wanted to flag that up, that actually it's okay to feel potentially sometimes in the classroom like, this is all, you know, why can't I do this? Or this is really difficult, or everybody else makes it look so easy. And there's a great chapter in Ollie Lovell's book about cognitive load theory in action, where he talks about cognitive load for early career teachers, and not in about, you know, not in the through the lens of for our students, but actually for ourselves, and how, you know, how rich that environment is in terms of information in our classrooms. So I really wanted to flag up the fact that actually, yes, we are in a process of learning in our early career, and we have to be mindful of the pulls that can have on our own cognitive resources. And I'll pick that up as we go through. But Angus, if you do the next one, I also wanted to show you this idea about this novice to expert continuum. Now, you may be learning this as part of your early career framework work about the differences in the ways that people think and solve problems, depending on whether they are novice or whether they are expert. Now, if we are early on in our career, then potentially we are much more towards the novice end of the spectrum. But I really wanted to point out that this is not necessarily a linear route, and that as you go through your early career, whether that be your first year, your third year, your fifth year, whatever it is, you will kind of slide up and down this novice to expert continuum. And one of the great things about teaching is that we never quite master it. We never really get to the point of that amazing skier on that picture, you know, where they're doing that perfect run downhill. Because just like that perfect skier who skis downhill and then at some point might kind of hit a patch of ice, or, you know, there's a bump that they weren't expecting, that's the same with teaching. You know, so the first well-being thing that I would say to you is kind of accept that we are all constantly learning in teaching. It's not just the children in our class, it is us. And that we are going to be placed at different points on that novice to expert continuum as we move through our career. And there will be points at which we kind of hit a little bit of skiddy sort of ice or a bump that we weren't expecting it. And that can change depending on the circumstances in your role. Angus, if you want to click. So some of the things that can affect how we're placed on here and how we feel about how well we're performing, or how well we're coping, or how well we're balancing everything, can be, you know, you may suddenly have to teach a different subject. And especially in primary, you may have some subjects with which you feel really, really competent and confident, and you're much more towards that kind of expert end. And there are other subjects, I'm thinking of myself in the teaching of music, where I'm much more down the other end of being a novice. Same with year group. You know, you may get to the end of this year group and think, right, I've really got it licked teaching year 8 or teaching year 6 or teaching year 2. And then you have to move year groups and teach another year group. So you kind of slide around on that continuum again. You may have some prior experience that you can draw on. You know, in your training year, you may have been in year 4 and you're in year 4 again. So great, you may be at a different point on that continuum. And then you may have individual needs of pupils or groups. You know, one year you may sail through teaching, thinking, I'm the greatest gift of teaching ever to walk this earth. You get a different class with some different groups of children, and all of a sudden you think, oh my goodness, I have to approach this completely differently. Their needs are completely different from what I've encountered before. Confidence as well. Confidence is a huge one. If you're confident in what you're doing, you're going to feel more like an expert rather than a novice. And being a novice in something can make you feel slightly less confident about things. I would definitely not want people to come and see me teach aspects of, as I said, music or geography. Come and see my maths and literacy all day long. I'm much more confident in that. That kind of links to your prior knowledge as well. And also you may be integrating new resources or technologies. You know, you may have used a particular smartboard or whiteboard on your placement, and now you've got a completely different system that you're trying to get to grips with. And then there's the way it's done around here, the different ways that schools work, and getting to grips with all of those. Now, if you think of all of that through the lens of cognitive load, it's huge. So my first thing to say to you is, if you're feeling like the kind of the balance or the juggle is being a bit of a challenge, I'm not surprised, really, because we as teachers are juggling all of this information all of the time. So what can we do about it? Angus, next one, please. I'm going to talk to you through these little 5 pictures that we've got here, and it's information and advice that I share with all of my early career colleagues in all of my cohorts. The first one is about presenteeism and productivity. The temptation when you're feeling like you've got a lot to do is to do more. So the first thing I'm going to say to you is actually doing more often isn't productive. There's lots of evidence, loads of studies, and there's a very famous Harvard study that says if you're working more than about 50 hours a week, your productivity will actually fall. It will drop off the edge of a cliff. And over sort of 60 hours, you might as well be doing nothing because actually you become so saturated and so unproductive as to be ineffective. So my first message to you is keep an eye on the number of hours that you're working every week so that your productivity and your effectiveness doesn't drop off the end of a cliff, which is the phrasing that the Harvard study uses. So it's bearing in mind that Mo Farah is a marathon runner, and that in education, we have a whole academic year over which we need to spread our energies. Now, if we decide to go at every single day as a marathon, we're going to fail because Mo Farah is a marathon runner, but he doesn't run a marathon every day. If he ran a marathon every day, he would not be an effective marathon runner. So it's bearing in mind that doing more might feel like we're making headway, but actually, potentially, if we end up doing loads every day, it will eat away at our reserves and actually we become less productive. So what can we do? Well, the first thing we need to do, again, is to remember, a little bit like Mario Kart, that this may be our first time round the track. And when you play Mario Kart, you never quite know what's coming. You never know when the next wall or the next bend or the next kind of bump in the road is going to come. And it's kind of accepting that until we've done a complete circuit of the track, a complete academic year, be that in our new class, for the very first time, or whether we've changed year groups, or whether we're, teaching with a different syllabus or curriculum, until we've done one route around the track, every day is a first day, and that's okay. We just have to learn from it. So what can we do? It's scanning the horizon. We need to make sure that we're really clear about the ebb and flow of our academic year, because we can't go at every day like it's that kind of Mo Farah marathon. So speak to your mentors, speak to your often the business manager or the office manager about actually what the shape of the school year looks like. When are the big data drops? When are the big assessment periods in school? When's the Harvest Festival? When's the photographer in? When's the residential? Scan that horizon and find out what the shape of the year looks like, so you're a little bit more forewarned and forearmed and not kind of playing Mario Kart. So scan the horizon. And the sweets is an image that I use with all of my cohorts to say, actually, we're rigorous about planning what we need to do for other people. We're not as rigorous about planning other things for ourselves. So plan in opportunities in your diary and ring fence them for treats, whether that's going to your sister's hen party or going away for the weekend or playing football or baking or walking your dog, whatever it is, ring fence that time, because the more happy and balanced and kind of a human we are, the more productive we are at work. If we just give all the time, and no child wants to walk up to you on Monday morning and say, what did you do at the weekend? And you to go, I planned a geography unit. They don't want to hear that. They want to hear that you walked your dog, you played tennis, you ran the London Marathon, whatever it is. If you're going to be a great teacher, you need to bring yourself to the classroom, and you need to ring fence with the same fidelity and the same rigidity that kind of time for yourself as you would for your planning and your work. Okay, Angus, next one. So how do we prioritize what we've got to do? We've got masses to do in education. How do we prioritize it? Click. The first one is ask yourself, is it a child protection matter? If it's a child protection matter, you do it then and you do it straight away. So, and pretty much unless it's child protection, it doesn't necessarily need doing right that moment. Okay, click. The next one, again, is it health and safety? If it's health and safety, child protection, do it. If not, it can potentially be shelved. Okay, next one. And then ask yourself, if I don't do it, what's going to happen? It's a bit of a cheeky question, but ask your mentor as well. You know, if I don't get this done, what's the consequence? Because very often we can think that every message we get has equal value. And we need to know, I don't mean what the consequences are you going to get a telling off? I don't mean that. I mean, actually, if I don't manage to get this done, what are the repercussions? Am I understanding how to prioritize, as in what effect things have? Next one. Who can help me, and can I delegate it? You know, can I get my child at home to help me cut things out, or can I actually delegate this to somebody else in school, or somebody who can support me? Right, next bit. What's the real deadline? There are deadlines in school, and then there are real deadlines in school. And if you are struggling, flag it up. Go and say to somebody, you know, I'm really struggling to get this done by Friday. Is it really Friday it needs to be done by, or can it be done by Tuesday? Because very often there'll be an actual deadline and then a real deadline. So go and talk to people if you're finding your workload stacking up, and see if you can have those deadlines moved. Don't panic, and try and meet them if they're unrealistic for you. And then what are you going to put off? So if somebody's asked you to do something, ask the question, okay, so if I've got to do this now, what can I kind of delay or not do? Or, you know, do I need to help readjust my deadlines? Have those conversations. Next one. And then time yourself. I talk to all my ECTs about this. You know, time yourself how long it takes to do something. So if you're thinking about marking, if you're still doing sort of an aspect of marking, time yourself without any distractions how long it takes you to do it, and then you know. And then be really strict with yourself about that's how long you're going to spend doing it, with no distractions, no telly, no nothing, no kind of popping in to have a chat with a colleague. Actually sit down, you know that this takes this long and this takes this long. Okay, next one. And then think about when you're going to do it. So plan your week. Right, I'm going to mark here, I'm going to plan there, I'm going to assess here, and then stick to it. Try not to be kind of pulled hither and yon by other distractions. For me, social media every time. Right, next one. And then questions to ask your senior colleagues. Lean on your colleagues. So who can show me how to do this best? So I've been asked to do this. Where can I go to see it being done brilliantly? Who can I learn from? Next one. Ask them what their NQT or their early career year was like. People love telling a story, and also you'll learn strategies from them about how they balance things in your situation. Ask them what they want you to focus on. It's a great phrase. My colleague Phil uses it. Doug Lamov uses it. A dog can only chase one rabbit. So actually, what is the focus for me? What do you really want me to focus on? In amongst all of these other messages, what do we need to do? Who's been in NQT recently who I can talk to and draw from? The greatest tips often come from those people who've just been through it. So draw on your networks. Next one. Take your to-do list to your mentor or to a senior colleague and go, right, just tell me what I can scrub off. I've got all this on it, what really needs doing, and make yourself a to-don't list. I don't need to do that. I don't need to do that. I don't need to do that. Right, next one. And then make sure you know who in your school you've got to talk to if things aren't going brilliantly, what systems are in place, what support is there for you to talk through things if things have become really tricky. And then if you're an early career teacher, if you're in a generic staff meeting that's expectations are being given out, talk to whoever's mentoring you, talk to your line manager and say, is this expectation the same for me? You know, do I need to adapt it because I've not had experience of this, or I need some support for this, or will I be getting some extra help or extra time to do this? Next one. And then basically, how are you? We work as a team in schools. Our senior colleagues are experienced. They're probably further along that novice to expert continuum, but they are still human too. One of my greatest ever NQTs when I was in headship brought me a cup of tea one day and she said, you look a bit tired, so I brought you this. I thought, I love you. So your senior colleagues need as much support as you do as well. So don't forget to ask senior colleagues how they are and to build that team as well. Right, last two slides. First one very quickly, and this is from my book, Being More Toddler, and these are my two children, well, two of my three children here, about the monster under the bed. Teaching is difficult. Teaching can be a bit scary sometimes, and teaching can be quite daunting. When my youngest, who's there in his tiger suit, has a nightmare in the middle of the night, he screams, and he screams for mummy, and he screams for help. And that's what I would say to you today. If you find a metaphorical monster under the bed in your teaching, be that workload, be that planning, be that how to model a particular concept, be that dealing with the tricky child protection concept, make sure you ask for help. The teaching profession is full of wonderful, wise people, and I ask for help all the time with many things. Nobody's ever turned around and told me I was stupid for asking for help, or didn't offer me the help in the first place, or refused to help me. So make sure if you've got a monster under the bed, go and scream for help and seek help through those networks. And the last one is, again, these are my two eldest ones. Find somebody to look up to. Find somebody to inspire you. Now, that panelist that's just been on, Hannah and Vivian, are two of my absolute heroes. I adore both of them. They have taught me so much, helped me with so many things, opened so many doors for me. I absolutely look up to them so much. They completely inspire me. And it's so important to find that person to inspire you. That whether that be somebody in the same situation as you or in a different part of the sector, find that person who you think, I want to be like you, because there are so many brilliant people in education that we can learn from. So find your hero as well and talk to them. So there we go, Ben. That was a whistle stop tour.
Thank you so much. And quite a good slide to end on. Thank you for inspiring so many of us as well. I include myself in that. So thank you for that. I think some really great messages through there and really practical tips that you can take. I was that ECT a couple of weeks ago when I told we were getting sent the staff calendar after hearing your tip, that I went to the office manager and was like, can I have the calendar now? Yeah. And it's true though, like for example, this week we had school photographs and it was during my class's PE slot, and if I hadn't have looked at the calendar, I wouldn't have thought, well, yeah, my parents have done their kids' hair and I'm now getting them to tie their hair back.
And it's also like, I've prepared this wonderful drama lesson. We're going to do it in the hall. I haven't got anything else up my sleeve. You walk in and there's the guy with the big like light shade, and you're like, oh no.
So yeah, so definitely some fantastic ones. And I think the really good one there about your senior colleagues, remembering that we often get asked, how are you? But it works both ways as well. I think some really, really good points. So thank you so much for giving up a bit of your Saturday, Emma, to share that with us.
I've not had to deal with lunch with the Trinity of Chaos, so this has been a real treat. So thanks so much, Ben. Thanks for having me.
Thank you, Emma. Thank you very much.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Well, that was absolutely fantastic and brings us to the end of our launch event. Angus, I'm going to say don't worry about sharing the last couple of slides, because I'm just going to talk through it, because the main thing we want to say is, first of all, thank you so much for coming today to today's event. You should have all been sent from Eventbrite the survey for today's event, so please do take time to fill that out to make our events as useful as possible. You can share this link with other people that you know, and share the wisdom of everyone, and also share on Twitter and Instagram as well what you've got from today's event, because it would be absolutely fantastic to see what your main takeaways were. So thank you so much for joining us. Have a great rest of your Saturday and a great weekend too. Thank you.